Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Dr. Steve Simpson, and I'm a mind coach, and I'm speaking to you from London. And the subject today is luck, and I've been particularly interested in luck for 2.5 years or more. Of course, I was interested in many things before that, but it seems to me from seminars and talking to people that if there's one thing we wish we could all have a bit more in life, then luck would be it. And I've written a book about it called Get Lucky Now, which is available on Amazon, and it says the 7 secrets of lucky people, because people can attract luck into their life. I'm convinced of that. Of those 7 secrets, 6 of them are relatively logical. They're just things that some of us do without thinking about it, and some of us don't. And when we learn what they are, the common reaction is, gosh, well, that's not exactly rocket science, is it? And it's not. But there are a few things that you definitely have to do. And everybody will, well, very often people come up to me and say, you know, I saw a speech you made or a video or something, and you said one thing that really resonated with me. And I always have to ask the question, well, what was it? And the surprise that I get is that often it's almost a throwaway comment. To give you an example, one of my, I have a meetup group in London every month, and one of the guys came along and he just said, well, you know, what's your philosophy of luck? And I said, well, in simple words, I think you've just got to put yourself into the game. You just have to show up for stuff. And I left it at that. But he came back the next time and had obviously been thinking an awful lot about this little comment. And he said, I've taken your advice. So I said, okay, well, what have you done? He said, I've written a book, or I've just started writing a book, and it's a book about, it's called Einstein and Hawking Go to Dinner. That's Albert Einstein and Stephen Hawking, 2 of the greatest scientists of recent time. And that came from a simple comment. So I have to be very careful now about what I say. And one thing that I can say right now is welcome. And I hope that I say this for every show, because we have more people signed up than ever before. And those of you who are familiar with this service will know that as soon as the webinar is over, it's slated to last 30 minutes, then it gets processed and will then be available for anybody to see as a download on the site. Now, in my last one, well, perhaps I'd better explain why the webinar is 30 minutes. 30 minutes is, to me, is about the most that people can keep focused on something. Now, I recognize that I'm by no means typical, but I've avoided webinars that some of them go on for an hour or 2, and I just really don't think I have the time. That's probably a bit of an excuse. I could make time, but it's a long time. So I've gone for 30 minutes. I've had a few feedback comments so far that a few people at least agree with me. But if there was a huge demand for longer webinars, I'm perfectly happy to do them, because it's not what I think is going to be the best that's important. It's what you, the audience, think. Now, in the last show, I made a plea. I said, folks, post some questions. And they were a very shy bunch. I think I might have had 1 question. And this time I have 3 already, and I'm happy to take some more. I think there's a little box on your screen where you can type something. But even with the 3 we have at the moment, there is plenty there for us to think about. And just because you didn't post those questions doesn't mean to say at all that there's nothing in there for you, because these are the kind of, actually, I don't know, I think I just got lucky with these, because these are the kind of questions that my clients ask me all the time. So who are my clients? Well, some of them are world champions. Some of them are people who want to be world champions. And some of them are people just like us. And what we have in common is that we think there's something better out there than what we're currently getting, or that we're capable of better. And that is the truth. And why we are better than we think we are is because it's what's inside here. In the most simple terms, our brain is made up of an unconscious mind and a conscious mind. And as you probably know, the unconscious mind is far more powerful and far larger than the little bit that we're always using to think and worry through our days. So if we can tap just a little more into that unconscious mind, we start to get lucky for some reasons that I'll be able to go into today, but other ones are in the book. The book, by the way, is on Amazon. So let's make a start with the first question. And the first the first question. And this was a person called Stacy who asked me what I have to say is a tough question. She says, how can you give your family a great life if you're too ill to work? Well, the first thing to say, Stacy, I'm sorry that you're too ill to work. I'm sorry that you're ill, full stop. And I hope that it's not too serious. And I hope that you're getting treatment and that you will be able to return to good health. But all I have is one sentence. And so reading between the lines of that, I have to try and build a picture in my mind, as we all do, because we find it very hard to think if we don't have a picture to think about. And that will probably come up in at least one of the other questions that I have. So how can you give your family a great life if you're too ill to work? I don't want any of my comments to sound trivial, by the way. I did promise you I'd give this a lot of thought, and I have done, Stacey. And there is no easy way that I can say some of this other than to say what seems to work or might sometimes work in other people. One of the problems that we all have is we live in a world which is largely made up of hallucinations. Now, what on earth do I mean by that? When we think of hallucinations, we probably think of people who are on drugs hallucinating stuff, or we think of schizophrenics who have a mental condition that makes them have very vivid and just extraordinarily distressing hallucinations. But you see, they're not the only ones, because we do as well. So what exactly are we hallucinating about? Well, it's got something to do with mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is, if we can achieve mindfulness, it means that we're living in the present. We're very grounded in what we're doing in this particular 1 second, and we are not thinking of stuff that has happened to us, particularly if it's stuff that we don't really want to dredge back, and we're not worrying about stuff that's going to happen in the future because, well, not because, it would be a waste of time, largely a waste of time, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And yet, because our mind is so skillful at building these pictures, these hallucinatory pictures, we start to believe that these events that we're thinking about in the future are real. So, Stacey, there's a little start, because you say, how can you give your family a great life if you're too ill to work? Well, that suggests to me, and I guess definitely to you, is that it's not going to be possible to give your family a good life, or if it is, it's going to be difficult, or it might be that at the moment you just don't know how. Well, what I would say is, well, how do you know that you're not giving your family a great life? If you're saying that you're not, then that might be based on reality, or it might not. But what you can't be sure about is, what do your family think about this? Have you talked to them about this? Have they talked to you about it? Because you just don't know. I mean, I work with people's mind as a psychotherapist, a therapist, a mind coach. And if there's one thing that I've learned over the years, it's that I never really know what's going on in another person's mind. In fact, I'm honest enough to say most of the time I don't even know what's going on in mine. So it could well be, Stacey, that I'm hoping it is, and I wouldn't be at all surprised, is that your family are having a great life. You see, do your family, I mean, your family would obviously want you to be well. And they might want you to work and they might not want you to work. They might like it that you're at home with them. I don't know how the ages of your family. So I would suggest that you don't assume that it's impossible, that you're not already giving your family a great life. I think love is a universal lubricant. It makes things happen. Love between family members is about as strong as it can get, and it can overcome all kinds of challenges. And we see this in so many people in so many situations. So please don't beat yourself up. You didn't wish to be ill. It's happened to you at some point in our lives. All of us, sadly, are going to get ill at some stage. As far as the work is concerned, yeah, we all work. We need to pay the mortgages. We need to put food on the plate. In some countries, we have benefit systems that support people who are going through difficulties like this. And as civilized society, well, as societies, I think we all should, because those of us who are lucky and working should be prepared to contribute to those who are having challenges in their life. So, Stacey, I hope that at least you're getting the minimum that we all need to live a life. After that, love goes an awful long way. That's about as far as I can go at the moment, Stacey, but you know where my website is. You'll easily find my email address. Please, by all means, write me a note. And if I can help you any more with this, I will. But my final comment is, my guess is that you're a great mother and a great partner or whatever, and doesn't have too much to do with the fact that you're not working. It's something that's inside you already. Okay, the next couple of questions, I'd like to think they're a bit easier than that, and they may well be. I started off with Stacey because, first of all, she was the first person to post an answer, and that's putting yourself in the game, Stacey. Next thing you'll be writing a book about Einstein, maybe, or maybe something else. But you put yourself in the game, and if you don't turn up to stuff, then you're not going to give yourself opportunities that you don't even know just might exist. The second question was somebody called Caroline. I'm not going to take that first because I have another question from Lucy. Got no gentleman here, by the way. So, gentlemen, it's not too late. You can fire your questions. I think there's a little box where you can type it in, and if I can bring it in somehow, I will. And so Lucy says, and I think the reason I'm taking Lucy's question first is because some of the things that I'm going to say about that might go some way to addressing the next question. So Lucy says, how can I keep calm at work with lots of deadlines and not get overwhelmed? Well, if I had $1 for every time somebody had asked me this question, I'd be a very rich man. And certainly there'd be a lot of people out there who would be a lot happier if I could solve that for them. And I'm not sure that I can, but I do have a few suggestions. So again, I just have one sentence to work with. How can I keep calm at work with lots of deadlines and not get overwhelmed? Let's talk about the deadlines for a start. Everything's in the word, isn't it? Deadline. What does that mean? Does that come from a line in the sand? And somebody would say, you step over that line and you're dead. Maybe, for all I know. But gives me a shiver just thinking of that word deadline. So, Lucy, I'd try and choose a different word to start with. I'm not quite sure what word you might choose. It might be a to-do date. This project has a to-do date of whatever it might be. First of all, I have to ask what kind of person you are, because there is going to be two different answers, two different suggestions to this question, depending. Now, in the kind of work that I do, I come across some people, a group of people, and I hate buckets and generalizations, by the way, but they're called prevaricators. Now, what does a prevaricator do? Prevaricators probably are doing some of the stuff that I said. They're living in the moment. And why would they worry about something that's a couple of months down the road? when they want to give all their focus to what they're doing right now. So that's the good part of it. But if you have a deadline which is 2 months down the road and you only decide you're going to address the problem a day before, well, then that does have a downside, because my experience of life is that just when you want a bit of time to focus on something, something happens out of the blue, an emergency that demands all of your immediate attention. And then before you know it, that deadline that you'd set yourself has been and gone, and you might get into a lot of trouble for it. So we need something in between. If we have a propensity for prevarication, those are two big words, too big, then in that case, I would just have a picture in my mind. Let's say this project is to be finished in 2 months. I'd have a picture in my mind that it has to be finished in a month, and see myself doing it, and maybe put in my diary, if you have something like that, this project will be completed. The to-do date is 1 month from now. But that was the easy bit. Now, the bit that I suspect applies to most of us is the way that modern society is structured, and particularly, Lucy's asking about a work problem here, particularly the way work is structured. My first serious job, which was longer ago than I care to remember, I was a surgeon, a relatively inexperienced surgeon working in a remote part of Africa. I was probably the only doctor, let alone surgeon, for hundreds of miles around, and maybe even thousands. And I was working in Angola, which was a country at civil war, unfortunately. So there was no shortage of work for a surgeon to do. And there were a lot of shipping ships that passed by that bit of the coast. And if they had problems, they would know. There was a little hospital where I was working. And so I'd get involved with that. Now, the reason why I mention that is because I guess I was about living in the moment as much as you can. If we were lucky, we had a mail pouch arrive once a week, and that would have letters from our friends and family, and it would have instructions from head office, which of course we welcomed with relish. And the rest of the time, the 6.5 days, we were on our own. We had to do it, and we had to get on with stuff. But can you imagine that happening today? I don't think so. We are surrounded by, those of us who live in the technological world are surrounded by gadgets. Many of them are made by Apple, and in theory, they are supposed to make our lives more simple. And in many ways, they do. But there is a downside to everything. And it means that there is this expectation in society, and particularly with our bosses and the people that we work with, that we are going to be available all the time. And nobody's going to wait a week or 2 weeks to get an answer to a question they have. They might wait a day, but then you'll get a little ping in the inbox, just checking, did you get my note? And people at work can get hundreds of these notes every day. So, Lucy, you say you're being overwhelmed, and it may not just be the deadlines that are overwhelming you, it may be all of the other stuff as well. I don't see those things are going to change, but I don't see either that the current record levels of mental illness are going to change either, because that graph at the moment is going exponential. For the generation that has everything, supposedly, we don't seem to be very happy about things. Things are getting us down, and I think that this is one of the main things, because people now don't know what it is not to be at work. And we've all seen them on holiday by the swimming pool with their iPads or other devices that they have, checking their work emails. And when you ask them why they're doing it, they say, well, it's just easier. You know, if I leave things for 2 weeks, I can't bear what I'm going to do that first morning back at work. Or it could be, well, my boss expects me to. And it's the same thing in the evening. They can't watch TV programs or go out somewhere without checking all the time. And, we become addicted to this. I mean, the chemicals in our brain, it's almost like playing the slot machines. You get the instant gratification of a war, of winning something, or the incident, or the instant, feeling in the bad feeling in the pit of your stomach when you lose something. So we kind of get trained to be available all the time, and so therefore we don't really rest, or the only time we rest is when we're asleep, and even then it's our sleep that suffers. So what on earth can we do about all of that? I think we have to be honest, and I think we have to prioritize stuff. I mean, there are going to be the deadlines, Lucy. They're not going to go away, but there are some deadlines that might be a month away, and there are others really important emergency type stuff, and we seem to have to handle more of that now than ever before, which you do have to get on with. And that then raises questions: are the expectations of your job realistic? Is it really appropriate, as some people have to be on call 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Is it really necessary that every day you have to work extra hours just to keep up with the level of work that's being pushed at you? Because if all of those things are necessary, then I can tell you it doesn't matter how resilient and robust you're going to be stressed. And your manager and your company, if you work for a company, they shouldn't be happy about that, because hopefully they will know that employees who are stressed do not perform their best work. You can't. I mean, if you don't believe me, imagine that you're trying to do something and somebody is shouting in your ear the whole time, or even worse, two people shouting in each ear while you're trying to do something. It's just not possible. I work with elite performers, and I know with certainty that people perform best when they're relaxed, when they're in the zone or in the groove, and that can only happen with a calm mindset. And I suspect it can only happen when one is truly in the moment, truly mindful. So that needs a discussion, Lucy, with your manager. And that kind of leads me into the second question, because discussions like that themselves can be incredibly stressful. People rate that as one of their biggest fears, or at least the people that I see, and from what I can read about, it's pretty universal. So I have the final question I have, unless I have any from anybody else, please do fire one in if you have something. And it's from Caroline, as I mentioned earlier. I don't see the whole of this question. This is quite a long one, and my box, I think, cuts off after a certain number of words or something. But I've got enough here to get the gist. And the question is, I know I have a stressful time coming up. I have to work with a very difficult, challenging person. Oh dear. I think I need advice on how to remain neutral. I want to be constructive and calm, but could easily tip over to panic. Well, there's a lot of anxiety about this, isn't there? And I'm sure that many of you will resonate with that, because we've all been there. So there I've got a bit more than one sentence. So let's just break this down a bit. I know I have a stressful time coming up. That sounds to me very much like an hallucination. It might be true, but it might not be. We've all done that, haven't we? We're very good at painting the worst possible picture. I mentioned visualization. Well, that's what we're doing. We're building this picture, and it's usually about as bad as it could be. Now, I suppose the slight advantage of that is, prepare for the worst. But if you're doing that all the time, that's going to have a long-term effect on your brain chemicals, and it will make you have, I guess, a negative outlook on life, expecting things to go badly all the time. I know I have a stressful time coming up. Well, you might get a pleasant surprise. I'm not saying you will, but if you're going to build a picture like that, at least build a picture side by side of things going really well. Sometimes you can walk into a meeting and you come away and you say, I can't believe it. I got everything I asked for. God, I wish things went like that every time. So Caroline, I hope this is not going to be as stressful as you think. I have to work with a very difficult, challenging person. Well, I would say the same. Are you sure that this person is difficult and challenging? You obviously have your reasons, but this person, I mean, it could be different. I mean, we're all different every second. Your previous experiences, which may not have gone so well, might be when you don't know what's going on in somebody else's life. We never do. So be open to the possibility that this difficult, challenging person may not be as difficult and challenging as you like. There are all people, and that's why I say these are generic questions. There are people that we all know and have to work with, sadly, who are just not going to get on. I mean, we're human beings are made like that. We're all very individual. We all have our own ways. And I have read somewhere that if you don't like somebody or you find somebody difficult, it's possible, it obviously doesn't happen in all cases at all, but it's possible that you see something in that person that just reminds you of something that you see in yourself, and it just gives you an uncomfortable feeling. But even assuming that that's not true, just give this person the possibility of showing that they're not as difficult and challenging as you might have constructed your thoughts to be. I think I need advice on how to remain neutral. Yes, being neutral would be better because we all give off energy, depending on our emotional state. And when we're feeling stress, our body posture changes, we talk faster, and we start to feel sweaty. And another person will sense this. Maybe not consciously, but with their unconscious mind. And dogs, we all know they sense that. They say dogs can smell fear. Well, I'm pretty sure they can. And I'm pretty sure that humans can as well. So how to remain neutral? I could tell you to breathe. When people get tense, they also stop breathing, sometimes for quite a long time, or when they do breathe, they breathe fast and shallow. So just like your mother probably said, or your grandmother, just take a deep breath. Well, that's age-old advice, but there's some truth in it. If you feel yourself getting tense, and feeling it is half the way to getting it fixed, by the way, start with some breathing exercises. They're pretty universal. Breathing exercises, just slow, deep breaths, and they will help you a little bit. Staying neutral. I think one has to accept here that you have really very little control over this other person. And if they're going to be difficult, they're going to be difficult. If there's anybody that you can control, then that is yourself. And so if you can kind of metaphorically put a little bit of distance between yourself and this person, or put some kind of barriers or boundaries there, or even if that's not possible, just limit the time you spend with this person, then those are ways that will help you to stay neutral. And Caroline goes on, I want to be constructive and calm. Well, that relates to the last question, where I said that people do best when they are calm, when they are in the moment, when they are connected to their unconscious mind. And of course, when we connect to our unconscious mind, I work with professional poker players, as you might know, some of the best in the world, including the world champion. And one of the things that they recognize is that when you are emotion neutral, when you're calm, if you can be, when you're mindful, when you're in your unconscious mind, when you're in the zone, you really start to get some great intuition, because this is the unconscious mind speaking to you. And for dealing with somebody like this, Caroline, your intuition is going to be priceless. And as you say, you could easily tip over to panic. Well, I think if you just remember a few of those things that I said, I don't think you will panic. You are in control of yourself, even if you're not in control of another person. And we're almost out of time now. It's hard to believe. But one of the universal things that I say to people, just like I mentioned earlier, you have to put yourself in the game. The other Well, I'll give you two things here. One of them is luck is not random, and we don't live in a random universe. And the other thing that I say is you already have everything in your mind that you need. You already have the resources that you need. So they are there, Caroline. If you're in a panic, you won't find them. But our default state for everything, really, if we can get rid of these things that block our performance, our default state is to be calm. It is to be confident. It is to believe that we can do stuff. So I hope that some of the suggestions I've made will be helpful. So we could have gone on a lot more. I hope all of you have got something from our short webinar. I know that many more people will see the download when it's available. I'm in my little studio all on my own here. I do actually prefer working with people directly. But what I can ask for people and what will help me is please give me some feedback to know what you want to see in these webinars, because as long as people want them, I'm happy to do them. So until then, be lucky, be careful, because this luck is very infectious and you can spread it to other people, which could be a very good thing to do. This webinar will be on the air again a week from now. That week will go pretty quickly. So until then, stay well. Goodbye.